Welcome back to the Success is Complicated podcast. I am your host, Raquel.
And I am your co-host, Sierra.
All right, so today we are going to talk about like the effort that it takes to be in a marriage or a relationship.
Ooh.
So I was thinking about this last night, right? And I was thinking about the effort that it takes to just communicate. I think a lot of times, like in marriage or in relationships, right, we say that we're like, we want you to communicate. Like, I want to communicate and I want you to communicate, right? And I realized that, like, as I was like digging more into like, what does it look like to really communicate, and thinking about the times where I feel like Danny and I have really communicated and we have gotten over like something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost married for 10 years, and I think that we're just learning how to communicate. I would say that our communication probably started back in 2021.
Okay.
But it's still working on it, right? Because this weekend...
It's 2023.
Right, we're fresh in this thing. I mean, that's my opinion. We're fresh into this thing. Because I think that there's a difference between like doing what you got to do, like in a relationship or marriage, like, you know, taking care of the kids, balancing, like handling your responsibilities. And it's another thing to talk about like certain things. So I'll give you an example. Danny and I both have always been like, we're not into sleepovers. You ain't going to nobody's house sleeping over. I don't want nobody coming over here sleeping over. I don't want to be responsible for your kid, and I ain't gonna make you responsible for my kid. And not saying that I think that anything would happen. We didn't really do no sleepovers growing up, right? Now this weekend I was like,
you always pretended to sleep over at my house.
Yeah, until it was time to go to bed and I wanted to go home.
But your parents probably would have preferred you to stay.
True. Do you believe in do you let your kids sleep over places?
So I have some interesting dynamics when it comes to sleepovers, but am I open to allowing Hakeem to do a sleepover? Yeah. One, because
at somebody's house.
I'm open.
What does open mean? Open mean that you're starting to wrap your mind around,
right?
Or
right.
Open?
Right.
Okay.
Open that it hasn't happened yet. So open it hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
Keep going.
So communication, right? Because I was thinking about like the effort that it really takes to communicate with your partner. I had basically told Katie, I told Katie, you going to the sleepover, you going to a sleepover this weekend. I never had a conversation with Danny about it because I've been trying to get open to this. Like, let me see if I can really do this thing. Katie walks up yesterday and was like, Mom, am I going to the sleepover? And his dad was right there. And I was like, sleepover? I was like, Katie, I didn't. I did. He was like, Mom, you told me I was going to a sleepover. And I was like, no, babe, you're not going to a sleepover. You're not going, because I didn't want to make it that it was his dad, because I already know how Danny feels about like sleepovers. Like, it ain't happening. He's comfortable enough to like drop him off at friends' house that we've been knowing and stuff now. Like we're there.
Right. Which is a leap as well, right?
Yeah, that's a huge leap. That's a huge leap. But I never communicated with Danny. Like, I should have never told Kaden that he was going to a sleepover. But I never communicated with him because of the effort that it took. This, like, then, like, how do you feel about Kaden going to a sleepover? Because I already kind of like know I feel like I know what the answer is gonna be, but it's like the
effort behind. Once you tell me what I already know, now I am trying to be open to allowing him to go to this sleepover, but once you tell me what I already know, I'm gonna have to like rebuttal it and tell you why,
right?
And tell you like he wants to go. But I don't even think he gonna stay. Like, right. You know, like all of that stuff.
Right. Like, and that's why I think that it's not that a lot of people like in relationships that we don't know how to communicate. I think that what gets in the way of us truly, truly communicating, right, is the effort that it takes, because it's easy to communicate like what you want for breakfast this morning, right? Like sometimes, but for the most
Right.
part, it's easy to communicate that. But when you start having conversation about like finances, the kids, new stuff, or anything that might be challenging, I realize that many of us like shy away from truly communicating because it's the amount of energy that you have to expend to get somebody to see something like your way or to hear it like what you're trying to say.
So maybe that's just it, right? We go into these conversations and we want someone to see it our way instead of just being open to like the communication. And I find myself getting very frustrated trying to communicate sometimes in my marriage, right? Like I'm trying to communicate this like what you think, what you feel, what like I want so much more of like what you think about it than a person is willing to give. So I may shy away as well. Like,
I
okay,
did it again
I don't want to just pull you and you don't want to be pulled.
Right. I did it again this week too, right?
Mhm.
Like so when I had dropped Cam off at daycare, right? People was like, he needs some Pampers and white. And I was like, shit, I got a call at 8. Okay. But I'm done at 8:30. I got another call at 9. Now I'll go back home. Danny is still at home. The effort, like he still has to go out to work. I could have said, Danny, do you mind dropping off the diapers and the wipes to the daycare like on your way to work? The energy that it takes to like even ask for help, like that's a form of communication.
Right.
Because I did not ask him for help. But I would tell you that I was fussing in my head. And I'm like, he he got to drive that way anyway. Like I got 30 minutes to run. Like I had a full conversation with myself in my head because I felt like I was rushing that morning, right?
Right.
But what I didn't realize is I didn't want to spend the energy on asking him to go do it because it was just much easier for me to go and do it. And then he called me while I was there and he was like, babe, you know that I could have dropped the diapers and the wipes off on my way to work. And I was thinking, you could have just said that. But to be honest, when I think about it, like I had an attitude. I was like, I got to go drop these Pampers and these wipes off. And, and I just left. So I didn't create a lot of space to like have a conversation.
Right, to say I got a call in 30 minutes. It takes 15 minutes to get there, 15 minutes to get back. And
yeah, and just thinking about that, like asking for help is a form of communicating too.
It is.
Like I tend to think that I'm a great communicator, but now that I'm becoming like a little bit more self-aware about like just how I show up in my marriage, I'm like, girl, you got some work to do. Some real work to do.
Is it work to do, or is that the work being just aware of how you are showing up in the outcome that you want?
That is work. Like having to like take the self-awareness and then figure out how to apply it. That requires a lot of energy too. That requires energy. Like it's one thing to have the awareness, but you can choose to either do something with it or do nothing with it. But choosing to do something with it, that takes a lot of energy too.
It does.
That's why I'm like, when I like the mental demands on adulthood, like your ability to like problem solve, remember another person's needs and their wants, or the last thing they said that was important to them. That is like it's a lot.
It is.
And when you start to like look at yourself and be like, okay, I want this person to give this to me, but like in what ways are you reciprocating that?
Right.
So I was thinking to that. So this morning as we were driving over here, right, I was like, what's the hardest conversation you think you've ever had to have, like in your marriage?
In my marriage?
I mean, and if you're not,
girl,
you ain't got to tell the people all your business, because I sure ain't going to tell the people all mine either. But I think about, I'll give you some time because I just threw you on the spot because I had time to think about mine.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So I think about mine was in 2021. Probably the most challenging time in our marriage. But Danny was willing to lean all in. But like, and leaning in with like accountability that I wasn't ready for. When I say wasn't ready for, like the conversations that we were having around that time were like so challenging. I'm like, I'm gonna just get my bass and we just need to be done. Like, that's not just not do this anymore. And because you know the effort that it takes to really like look at yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing you look at yourself by yourself, right? It's another thing. It's another thing if somebody
really
like,
looking.
You said what?
Then who's really looking? It's the one thing to look at yourself by yourself.
It feels better when you're looking at yourself by yourself.
Sometimes, I mean, 'cause we can be pretty hard on ourselves.
Yeah, but I'm okay with that.
Right.
But when somebody else trying to be hard on you, and they got the mirror too, like I was like, why we don't need to do this? Like, we don't need to do this. But then I realized like that is a form of communication. Like, because Quill, you're not always right. Like, and just because you can do things by yourself, you know you're gonna be good one way or the other. Like, sit in it. And that I would say 2021 was like the year of becoming better communicators for us.
Right.
Because there were times where I'm like, I don't want to sit through this. It's just better to just go. Maybe it's just time to go.
So, I guess when we can talk about hard conversations, right? Are the conversations only hard when the mirror is on us, or are they hard when we are, trying to figure out?
Question.
Because I mean, I feel like in my marriage, I've definitely had some tough conversations, but it hasn't been one of those things where like, it's so weird because I almost wish somebody would say, "See, look at your shit." Like
in your marriage.
Right. Like I almost wish somebody would say, "See, look at your shit," because that is accountability. That is room to get it right
You
or
can
to get it better.
Then if you want, you can have him for a little bit. He'll make you look at your shit.
Because sometimes people are incompatible.
You can have Danny. He know how to hold the mirror up. Like we've been really good in our marriage with holding the mirror. It's been a thing of keeping score. Like that doesn't work either. Like keeping score. Like you remember you did that and then I did it. Like that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Keeping score has nothing to do with effectively communicating whatsoever. So that's not a bad thing because it tells that. Well, I don't know, because your husband could be feeling the same way, like the energy that it takes.
Exactly, the energy that it takes to say, "See, well, I do all the cleaning around this bitch." You complaining, but I sacrifice a lot too.
Right.
And but that will hold a level of accountability to me, right? To do something different.
It might.
Or I might say, you know what? You signed up for that.
Right. I mean, it might. I don't know. That was interesting. Like having somebody hold
you accountable for your decisions as well. I think because in a marriage, when we understand each other goals and all of those things, and we understand like we want this family to work, it's certain ways that we have to show up in order to make those things work. Not have to show up, but there are different contributions that we should make.
And now as I'm sitting here listening to it, thinking about like the things that, because I guess I'm not going to talk about like what 2021 was, because I think that if Danny and I ever decided to share, we would share it together.
We're going to expect Danny on the podcast, y'all.
He going to be on the podcast. I asked him the other day, but he said that's your thing though. But he did seem kind of open, more open than he seemed to a sleepover. But I was thinking about like as we're talking it through on the podcast, right? Like, what are those difficult conversations that we don't even realize that there's a block to say like, that's just too much energy to even have that conversation because I already know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just who you are. Like, And I think a lot of times we don't even realize that we expect somebody. Like that whole pamper and white thing for me. Like when I came in like Finn took my call and then kind of rushed out and I said what I said. Like I almost felt like he was supposed to run behind me and be like, no, babe, don't do it. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Like, but when you talk about like these difficult conversations or the things that stand in the way from our marriages, like really evolving, like people don't want to expend the type of energy that it takes to. I think that's what it ends up being, energy. Like it takes work to communicate. And when I say communicate, not say like, oh, like I need you to be more this and I need you to be more this. Sometimes you need to like be direct. Like I'll say this, like I am not the best when it comes to like managing like the finances. And like anytime that Danny says something to me about finances, I immediately get defensive.
So it's going to take a lot of effort on his part.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot. Yeah, it's going to take a lot because I'm immediately shutting down. Do not tell me what to do, mama. And sometimes it's okay. And my favorite line is, I need to treat myself sometimes.
Okay, we all deserve a treat.
But when I think about like the effort that it takes him, like, cause you notice when a person is shutting down.
Right.
Like when they get to the point, like they see that you done got something, purchased something new. At this point, he's just shaking his head. You're not even saying anything anymore. But those things, they build up over time.
Right.
And then you're like, oh shit, like how did we get here? Because ain't nobody communicating because of the effort that it takes.
Right.
And communicating isn't like, because I guess that's what I'm trying to explain. Like communicating isn't like fussing or complaining or just like talking about like what your needs are. I feel like it's easy to talk about what your needs are, but it's very difficult to talk about like what I don't want.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right. What do you mean what I don't want?
Like, for example, like if I want to see you go a little bit harder, right? Mm-hmm. Like, who the are you to tell somebody that they need to go a little bit harder versus saying like, I feel like I want a person that moves this way. Like, that's a lot easier to say versus saying like, I feel like you could be going a little bit harder.
I want a person. I don't know. See, like even that just rubbed me the wrong way. Like I want to go out and get the bitch then.
But that's what ends up happening though when you having those conversations, because what you're doing is in essence just sitting there telling the person like, you are all of the things that I do not want, or these are the things that I don't like in you, versus actually telling them.
Right.
Like that takes a lot, because it's almost like taking a jab at somebody.
Right. It is. It can definitely be seen that. But I guess, Raquel, what I'm finding in communication in marriage or relationships in general mm-hmm. is that our first stab at it might not be the be all, right? Because we may say, you know what? I'm going to start doing this to say that I have communicated more, to give you an open space or open room to communicate as well, right? Mm-hmm. But don't shut down if that doesn't work, right? Because communication is something that you may have to try it again and again in a marriage. I mean, if you're willing to, right?
I think that it requires a lot of effort, like ongoing
effort. You can't just say, "Oh, I tried one way, and now like it ain't work," because that's not marriage, right? I mean,
well, no, it's almost like when you feel like you know your partner, though, like what's the point?
Right.
Like I know what I'm gonna get from you, and that's why I'm saying I don't even think that people ever get to really communicating, because I already know who you are.
We have these thoughts in our head.
Yeah, that's like me, like
who the person is.
Yeah. And if I go back to the most difficult time, like back to 2021, I never even thought about like communicating with Danny, because I already know who you are. Like we ain't going nowhere with this. And that just, I don't know that really, it doesn't work. And I think that a lot of times we don't realize we do it. We communicate when we're like done or like frustrated or like, you can't see this thing working anymore.
Right. Then you go back for 100 years of stuff and you want to lay it all out in the most elegant and beautiful way and tell you, how does you feel on May 26, 2021? All of that stuff. Like, that is what we do. And then, the person is like, damn, I never knew that you felt that way, or I was doing, or you would even respond that way.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, what confuses us with thinking that we actually are communicating just because we talking. Because you can be talking and not be saying anything. Or like the person not receiving. Now, granted, you have no control over how the other person receives whatever you're saying.
Right.
But like, what confuses us with thinking that we're communicating? Because I am literally like, as I sit here and listen to myself, like, you cannot tell me that I'm not a good communicator.
Right.
Now, maybe in some instance, much better, but in my marriage, I'm like, no, you're not. Like, if I had to rate myself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, I give myself about a 2.
Oh, wow. So to answer your question, well, not to answer it, but to just throw something out here, right? I used to say, I guess in my marriage, if you're doing it to just check a box, but you don't understand why you're communicating, what you're communicating, or like what it is that you even want the person to take from it, then you're probably just talking and ain't saying nothing. It ain't landing, right? But if you're just checking a box, like, oop, told you, sort of deal, just to say that I told you, but there's no room for the person to say anything back. There's no room for like true discussion.
Or discovery of themselves.
Right. Or discovery for even the other person, right? Then you probably just talking just to talk. And I don't know if that's really communicating if you're doing it to just check a box and say, oop, I told you. So we communicated.
I'm thinking about myself, right?
What?
Because, the belief systems, like, what belief systems do I have that would prevent me from saying, like, babe, can you just drop the Pampers and the wipes off, like, on your way to work?
Right, because our belief system drives, like, our thoughts, our feelings, our actions.
Because I can't blame him for that.
Of course.
I never opened my mouth.
Right.
Besides said, I'm geared to run back and take the Pampers to the room. Like, in a hurry. Like, what belief system do I have that would prevent me from, like, asking for help? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's just a thought. I'm like, damn, you give yourself a 2 quail. Yeah, in my marriage, I don't know. I'm still working. I guess I'm still working on that. But I feel like Danny is adjusting. Like, I think that we're both adjusting to each other, right? Meaning, like, that was energy for him to call a grown-ass woman and say, like, I could have took that. Like, because Danny is like, I guess we're similar. Ain't nobody gonna play no games. Like, you knew that I'm getting ready to drive right past the daycare. Like, for him to pick up the phone and say, like, Quail, I could have took the Pampers. I could have dropped the Pampers and the wipes off. Like, that's energy. He didn't have to do that.
Energy and also an invitation, right?
Right.
So with that invitation is, what do you do?
Right.
If you...
now that I think about it, I think that I think it causes issues in anybody, marriages or relationships. Like, do we know what communicating is? I guess that's the...
Right. What is communicating? What should be communicated, especially when people want to keep their own identities, right? Like, how much do I share with you and still remain like this independent person?
Right, because we are human too. Like, the like, we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We don't want to be hurt.
Right.
I always say that oftentimes, even too, when we're listening, we listen to win or we listen to fix. And if you're listening to win or listening to fix, like it doesn't usually like solve anything. Because if I know that Danny like got a problem with me spending, right? Like I just got a pair of shoes recently. I just hid them in the closet like for a little while. And to be honest, because of the shoes that they were, when I pulled them out, he wouldn't notice. He would not even notice. He would not even notice. And then when I decided to wear them last week, and he was like, "You got some?" And I was like, "You know what these are?" He was like, "Well, they're like $600." And I was like, I needed to treat myself. Like I had been, this was a birthday gift, like immediately. Like now, granted, I think because he knows, like this is my wife. Like she gonna always get some BS answer when you try to hold her accountable for like her spending.
Right.
But the energy to even hide the shoes, like hiding them, figuring out when you gonna wear them, like that takes a lot versus saying like, babe, I got these shoes too. You know, I got the shoes when I was out with you, but I turned around and got some other shoes too. Like,
right.
I just didn't want to expend that amount of energy to do that. But that is a form of communicating.
But it's more energy, right?
Yeah.
Didn't it take more energy to have to put the shoes in a certain place instead of just putting them in a normal spot and
yeah, it did.
Like hide the bag and throw away the trash and like isn't that more energy than what it took for him to say, "Oh, you got some new shoes," and you to say,
but it's
"Yeah,
the accountability though. We always talk about like accountability. Like we're in a, remember I didn't say we're in a season of I ain't got it, like doing better like financially. And it's like when we're together, you have this, then that's what we have this conversation, but you going left.
Right.
And I think that that's the piece, because it's a reminder, like, are we moving as a team, or is Quail gonna move the way that Quail wants to move continuously? Because if we got a goal over here financially and you hiding stuff over here, like, how can I trust you? I mean, that's a form of trust. That's a form of a trust too, because when you walk away from a conversation, like, boom, this is it. And then you go and log on to Nordstrom's the next day. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think that I think I value accountability. So I am, I feel like I can be more accountable, like to myself.
Right.
But like being accountable to a person outside of just like my children, right?
Right.
That's been taking work for me. But I do appreciate Danny's patience, babe. I really do appreciate your patience.
Aww.
I do. Cause I used to think that my shit didn't stink. Like, for real.
We all tend to feel that way, right?
You think men feel the same way, like their shit don't stink?
Of course.
You think so?
100%. And let's be talking about their physical shit. Like, they walking around there like they got it together. They doing it the right way. Like, you can't tell them a damn thing.
So we just be wearing masks in marriages, all of us, to some degree. And trying to manage the expectations of the others. And in the process, like, not.
Is that a mask, though? Is that a mask? Or is it truly how they feel about how they're moving?
I think the mask is, well, I mean, I don't know. I think that we try to manage others' expectations, like, of us. And when you're trying to, like, manage the expectations, like, if I'm trying to manage the expectations that Danny has for me, like, that is a mask. Like, if I just took it down and, like, just said, like, I just went and got the shoes, like, or I did whatever, like, just let it be. To me, I do feel like that's wearing a mask, because I'm not being truthful to some degree.
Well, I mean, but did you lie? You didn't lie.
Omission is lying. Omission is lying.
I may have just wanted you to say that. Just
you wanted me to say, yeah,
omission
is lying. Okay. Omission is lying. What about the woman that feels like she has to, like, do it all?
Mm-hmm.
or like trying to do everything to like make her family work, like make her like, I guess balancing all of the so communication is one, right? I feel like we
Right.
didn't spend a decent amount of time on communication. What was the other one that I had came? You can talk about your hardest conversation in marriage if you want to. I ain't forgot unless you don't want to tell the people.
I mean, you ain't told us about your hardest conversation
sure
yet
ain't.
either. So
I tell you, it was
while you-
hard though. It was real hard. That mirror being up, that was hard.
Okay, so I've been married for 8 years, right?
Okay.
And I think my hardest conversation has not happened yet. It is.
Your hardest conversation has not happened.
It has not happened yet. Why she
God
look like
damn.
that?
Well,
Why? And the reason why I say my hardest conversation has not happened yet, right, is because remember I said is I feel like it's easy to mirror other people and to say you do this, you do that, you messed up here, right? But the tough shit is when that mirror is looking at you. Is when that mirror is looking at you. How haven't you shown up?
So like, when you tell me that your toughest conversation, and I feel like I done had my toughest conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when you talk about having like your hardest conversation, like that's when we start getting to the point of like, should we be together or not? Like is this what we like? Should we continue on this path? Because I feel like our hardest conversations was all of the things that we never really talked about, right? Complained about, fussed about, like, you know, I irritated, you know, this bothers me, but never really like
setting it together.
Right, setting it together.
Right.
And when you have to sit in it together, I think it just requires too much effort and energy. Like it requires a lot of effort and energy, and a lot of times it's much easier to go back to status quo.
Right.
Or to just move the hell on.
Right.
Move the hell on.
And I guess those are the reasons why I say that my hardest conversation hasn't happened yet in marriage, because I think we have had some tough issues, some things that come and shake and kind of rock us back and forth. However, have we truly sat in it together? Or did we go back to status quo? So
you know, and I don't
things
like status quo.
Things get to a point that where status
not
quo
when I'm getting older.
Can no longer survive. Like it's not sustainable. So yeah, we ain't been there yet.
Well, I'll be here for you. Like you be here for me.
I mean, because those are tough spaces, right? They
are tough spaces. They are tough.
But that doesn't mean
so
that says
couple...
that doesn't say that what Raquel is saying, like that gets to the point to like where
the marriage is not
gonna be together anymore. But I do think it is where
shows
the
you
real
what you're made of.
Right. I do think it's where the real communication begins at. That I think that's more of what I'm saying. Is that is where the real communication begins at, when all of the masks are off. All of the like
we both holding those mirrors up and both are willing to listen to like where you fall short and vice versa. Because I don't really think that any of us think we be doing it. Like now you think, I don't think any of us, if I go back and think about some of the conversations that we've had, man or female, like we don't know where we be falling short. Maybe we might be like, oh yeah, I could see that. But like to really sit in that.
Right. But you were gonna
no, because I thought that wasn't, when you say that we haven't had the hard conversations, like what are the signs? Well, I can't have, because I feel
go ahead.
You're like, girl, you ain't getting all in my business. No, because I feel like I can contribute, right?
Okay.
Because when I think about everything that led up to the point of our very difficult conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there were signs over all of the years, right?
Right. For sure.
For me, I mean, I guess when I think of like, what are the signs that you haven't gotten to the difficult conversation?
And this is the bullshit for with women, right? Is that we'll be sitting back saying some shit just like this, right? Our hardest conversation hasn't even happened yet. Like you already like, it's like we know, we understand, and maybe we've actually even been trying to have those conversations, right?
Mhm.
So I think that those are the signs. Like, have you truly been trying to have those conversations? Are you finding yourself frustrated in communication?
I think one of the biggest signs is, I guess for me, is feeling like you're carrying it all.
Maybe.
Like, to me, like that sense of overwhelm that you can feel as a woman.
Right.
I don't believe that most women communicate it. Like, to where your man feels like he gets it. Because I can recall a time when Danny would be like, I didn't ask you to do that. You be doing all that stuff.
Right.
Like, because that's how you want to move. You be doing all of that. And today when I really go, like, I still move like that. Like, I do. And be exhausted. And I be exhausted. And it's not because I don't have any help or I can't ask him for help. Like, I move like that. Like,
right.
I think that overwhelm or like I feel the overwhelm is one. If you're continuously feeling like overwhelmed by the demands of being like a woman, for example, you're probably not communicating or having those hard conversations. And I think sometimes it's because we can get wrapped up in what we think our roles are too.
Right. I think for some women, I definitely think.
Right. It's not at all. I'm just thinking about like what were the signs for like for myself before we got to the point of like really having like a hard conversation, because I was never communicating. I was fussing.
Right.
I was complaining. Well, slamming the dishes or, stuff like that. But I was never really saying anything.
Right. So were you just trying to like check the box to say, I told you? Like, I communicated to you. I told you
right?
how
Like,
I feel.
You think people are grown. Like, you're not stupid. Like, you know that these are certain things that a person needs in a relationship. Nobody the fuck wants to do it all by themselves or feel like they're doing it by themselves. But if you don't like Danny, he's like, I'm not going to read your mind. And that actually gets on my nerves, because if I know that you had to believe I'm not going to read your mind, like, I'm not even going to talk to you.
Oh, really? Okay. So for me, if you tell me you're not going to read my mind, like, I'm like, okay, this person can't read my mind. So I'm going to just talk. I'm going to just
No, because I think
something.
that was the older version of me, like, you playing games. You playing games.
But, I mean, do people really know what you're thinking?
I mean, I'm bouncing back and forth between the present Quail versus before. Like, how can you not know what I need in a relationship or in a marriage? How can you not? Because most of us want the same things from each other. Like, how can you not know?
But how it shows is different.
I mean, I agree. I understand that today, but I'm just saying, when you think somebody is like the fuck grown,
right?
Like, how can you not know? And that's the thing, right? Because Danny and I've been together, like, dating wise, almost 20 years. Like, we practically have grown up together. Like,
but y'all have changed and
a whole lot
to change, right?
Right.
Like,
that's right.
Those are like, so what you need at 18, baby. Do not try to give me what you gave me at 18 today at 35.
But I think that all the time we expect people to like to know that.
It's like, if you trying to date 18-year-old Sierra, like with an 18-year-old like mindset, like we ain't going nowhere.
But my point is, we expect people to I think we expect people to know that. Like, we expect people to recognize like how we're changing. Like,
right.
Didn't you notice that I was off like doing this? I started having new interests. Like, how didn't you not know that this was a thing?
Right.
I mean, I guess that's the thing that comes, because I think that you know, like you want to be with somebody like you got some common sense. And to me, it's always been about common sense, like how. But I guess on the other side, I've never thought about like how I have not had common sense either.
Right.
Like in terms of what his needs were or is either.
So do you feel like whenever your man picks up a new interest, you're like, I see that?
Today I'm a little bit
before.
Before?
Oh, okay. Okay.
You know, even so, this might be like TMI.
Mm-hmm.
But like sex drive wise, right? Like I don't have a high sex drive. I'm not saying that Danny has a high sex drive, but it's higher than mine.
I noticed if your damn sex change, like you got.
But you know, I think about when he used to like want more. Like he's always communicated his needs from that sense, but I'm like, what? You must got a problem with what I'm doing. Like that is the first thing that you default to. Like I'm not hearing you. I'm trying to diagnose what you're saying. What you're saying is what I'm giving is not good enough. Like that's the first thing that I have always heard versus hearing like today I'm a little bit conscious about it and understanding that we're different in that sense. But how do we find the balance? How do we manage me? I can go one time for the whole month and I'm good. Like how do you find it? Because that just ain't gonna work for him. But if you communicate, that's like holding the mirror up to me, and what you saying to me is, I'm a failure as a wife.
I feel like we broke up.
Huh? But that's what I'm saying. That's when I think about like the hard conversations, because Danny can be very direct, right? He can be very direct. And if you tell me like, it's the always, because I'd be like, it's how you say it. But I think that both of us know how to like go hard at you. But if you say like you're not satisfying me, I feel immediately, and I don't think people are comfortable with saying, I feel like a failure as a wife.
Okay.
And if you get blocked on feeling like a failure, I can't even begin to think about like what is the best way to show up for you, because I already feel like a failure. And me, I'm not gonna stay feeling like a failure, so I'm gonna just fight back. Well, go and find you somebody else then. And that would be the cycle. And then we go back to status quo, go on trips, do whatever. But I've never come around to, like, he's not saying, Quill, that you're a failure or you're not good enough. That's not what anybody was saying.
Right, right. But I think that those, like, that right there is a good indication, right? Like, he's telling you something, you're saying, go do something else then. And like, even I guess when I say like the hardest conversation hasn't happened in my marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a cycle like that. I say something, you say I'm not good, you immediately feel not good enough, and then we just go back to status quo.
Right.
So over a long period, like that is what
I'm sorry. I really was having to, and I use that example because I really had to place myself in it, because that's what you end up hearing.
I guess
like
that is what people end up hearing, like, I'm not good enough. But when you truly sit there, and what if you say, well, what am I supposed?
And that's the thing, we
like where are y'all today? Where are y'all today with the whole sex thing? Do you still have sex once a month? I told you, I feel like we broke up
now, but no, we do not, because like he requires a little bit more in that sense. I mean, I still be fussing and like complaining, but
where did you what conversation had to take place?
Quill, you're not satisfying me the way that I want you to.
Okay, so what had to be received on your end?
Quill, you're not a failure.
Mm.
You're not a failure because, one, you're not a failure. And the second part is you do not have to have the same values in terms of what it looks like showing up for each other. Because it's like one of those things, you can always find your person, right? Find you somebody that want to keep it simple, that want to just don't need all of that. That's easy to say than to like.
Easy to say and do.
yeah, easy to say and do versus trying to manage like what you actually have. So today, I think that I think that Danny has grown more patient. That would be the one thing. To like the girl probably gonna complain, do fight and everything. Then it turns out being like the best thing ever. Like, so it's good. It's. I'm not saying that I have changed much either.
So it's a balance of both of y'all knowing each other and what you have. Like, okay, I know I require more sex than normal. However, I know my wife is like, she like to run around the bedroom.
She's sleepy.
So I'm just going right. So I'm gonna play into that. I'm gonna play into it a little bit.
Yeah, he does that, and that works for us. So it ends up being he good, I'm good, and I'm good. Like, and then I don't feel like a failure.
Okay.
I really don't. I end up not feeling like a failure. I feel like my man is good.
So it's understanding on both ends that truly need to happen. Okay, so that is the real communication. It's not that we're changing people or that someone is seeing us like through like
the world does not revolve around you as an adult. Right. Just because you like to do it this way does not mean that somebody has to adjust to what you want. And I think that both of us understand that in our marriage. Like, just because these are what your needs are does not mean I have to adjust everything over here and vice versa. And I think that in the process, we've been able to manage those polarities. Yeah, because we talked about that before. Like, no, I mean, I feel good. Like, I don't want to go back to no status quo place. Like, I don't want to live no coping ass life.
Right.
Like, just because it like looks good, feels good for the most part. Like, I want to truly wake up and be like, I am the fuck happy. Like, I feel good. Like, when I look at you, and not saying that always looking at you and that I'm happy with you, but like,
we're really going in the right way. Yeah, I'm choosing to be here. I love you.
I'm choosing to be here. Like, I love you. And that is the difference. Every morning I wake up, I feel like I am actually choosing, not because we got these damn kids, not because we're married, not because we didn't get married to say that we want a divorce. Like, I feel like I am actually choosing. Like, it doesn't become like all of this energy to be married.
Right.
So, yeah, girl, we just had like a coaching, counseling, whatever you want to call it.
We did not.
It was good because oftentimes we talk about like finding purpose and meaning like in life in general. And you don't realize that even in marriage or these relationships, you have to be able to find purpose and meaning in those. Like, it can't be like, I don't know that like, because I think that the norm is like the kids, who the fuck gets married to say that, to say that we're going to get a divorce. And I think oftentimes you don't know how to find that meaning and purpose. And I as we're talking through it, like the meaning and purpose, I don't want life to be hard, right?
Right.
But also leaning into like the challenges that will propel us to like continue to grow. Like, I want all of that, but also realizing the part that you play. Because I mean, yeah, you got to realize the part that you play.
Right. And I know I talk a lot about redefining, like, what it means, because every season may not be the same or require the same meaning or purpose that last season did. So redefining it. I mean, even redefining communication, right? Because that changes as well.
Right. But you got to have them hard conversations.
You have to.
You got to.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to tell somebody, like we both work like HR, right? When you go to tell somebody that you got to fire them, even if like they deserve to be fired, like that is still a hard conversation.
It is a hard conversation. I remember, I mean, this is so off topic, but I remember we fired someone together before, and I don't think it's appropriate to say who.
I mean, we're not gonna say okay, go ahead. I'm gonna listen to the story. I'm trying to remember.
We knew that their presence was not working for our leader of the company, right? Mm-hmm. But because they were such a nice person, they were so great, like, we kind of cried at the termination. Both of us did. Like, we were terminating this person.
What their name start with? What?
The CM.
Oh God! Oh yes, that was.
They were such a great person. Like they were so sweet. They were so nice. However, they had some other.
That brings up a
Right.
great point too, because oftentimes too, even like, because you can get confused by all of the niceness, like you're a good person, like you're a good dad, you're all of these good things, and it prevents you from still having like, well, you're all of those things, but we still need this because companies do it all the time.
Right. You a
Because
you a good
that
ass
was a
person.
difficult. He was a good ass, good ass person. That's what you end up saying too in the marriage. But like, I think you're a great dad.
You a great
Like,
husband. Like you be cooking.
Yeah, you do all
doing
of these
all
things,
these
but
sweet
just
things,
something, it just
but
still
this-
ain't given.
Mm.
Yeah, but it that because it's much easier to leave a person like when you know for sure that they ain't shit.
Right. When you terrible than a motherfucker. When you been out here cheating and
is.
fucking bitches and like all
right.
of
When
these,
somebody like really give you a reason to like,
it's real easy to be like,
when it's
you know
like
what?
toxic.
Line drawing.
That's
I'm
the
done.
thing about
Like,
marriage too that makes it difficult too, because that part too, you be like, when the good dad, if I need something, like you know,
you're
you can find all
always
these good
there. Like you're
qualities.
so sweet. You're so loving. Like
right.
but you know, there's always like that
or a
that
person
but.
has good intentions. Like we knew that person that you're
I know
referring
you
to about
mean
friend. Like
well.
I know you mean well, but it ain't just saying, you know, it's
It
still,
ain't given.
It ain't given. It
What
ain't
you thought
given.
it was gonna be.
No, that's a good example too, because
Right.
oftentimes we like to create like the separation, and I find that while I probably was, I could communicate well to like fire that person, right,
Mm-hmm.
and had that moment of vulnerability and cry like I think you're an incredible person, but you can't even go back and do that back in your house. Like you can manage your professional life, but you can't manage your personal life.
But it is so much easier professionally, right? Sometimes.
I agree.
Sometimes, right? And I think that deals with like what you're saying about like the development, like your development as an adult, right?
Right.
When you're able to.
But that's the flex though. When we're talking about these mental demands, like
right.
your cognitive ability to be able to solve problems, like your memory, the way that you think, like that has to be stretched. And I think oftentimes we allow ourselves to be stretched professionally but not personally.
Right.
Because we're going to get to the bag, or like,
we ain't got no choice but to get to the bag.
Right. Because there's so many responsibilities that come with it. No, that's a really great point. See, I'm glad that you bring that out, because that was hard. I think that we were trying to talk about like how we gonna do it, what we gonna say, like.
I literally had to go take a moment.
But that's one of those things where you have to do it, right? Like if your CEO tells you that I want this person gone, like you don't got all day to be trying to figure it out. So you have to go and have those difficult conversations. And I think that sometimes in marriage, we think that the luxury of
that is a luxury, right? You don't have the demand of somebody else saying, I want this done today and I want it done now.
Right.
So you ain't got time.
Right. No, that's true. I think that that's a really great point.
Right.
I think that that's a great point. This one, we didn't get to the other stuff because we got stuck on communication. But
but communication is a topic alone, because it is where a lot of people struggle.
You know, because the communication to me leads to the emotional support, all of the other things that we end up talking about, right?
Right.
And remember the other day I was asking you, yesterday, right? I was like, see, what do you think about like our relationship with ourselves is a reflection of the relationship that we have with other people. And I think that it's one thing to be able to look at yourself, or how do you even know if you're looking at yourself? Like if you can hold a mirror to yourself, can you allow somebody else to hold a mirror to you as well?
Right.
And it's just that simple. Like, does it really have to be this safe? Like, I mean, what is the safe place at that point? Because feelings might get hurt.
Right.
That's
a natural thing. Right.
Yeah, and I think it's natural when people tell you that like you're not doing something right, is to like feel bad about it. I don't know too many people
who gonna take it and just be like, yeah, okay.
No, I don't know too many people that really do that.
Right. It's the ability to take it in and do something with it and ultimately move on. And assign that purpose as well.
Girl, that was good. That was good, girl.
What?
Well, because I was thinking about, like, you know, as a woman, that's real cute that you can manage your professional life.
Mm-hmm.
But let me see how you manage your personal life
And some of us try to go home and manage our personal life like we manage our professional life too. But
me too. I used to do that. Danny be like, I'm not them people that work for you.
We come home and we'll put some stuff in order. And be like, you know
girl,
what?
I was she.
It's done now.
Yep.
And ain't done shit.
Then be like, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, you just difficult. But like, I'm not doing that. But that's good though. That's good. That's good.
All right. So next time we're gonna, I guess, dive.
Jackie's coming on next week.
Oh, okay. Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie is coming on next week. I enjoyed this conversation.
I did too. Although I ain't tell y'all my business, she was pushing for it, but no.
Well, you told enough, girl, because you said you ain't had your difficult conversation yet. But I think it would make other people go back and think about, like, have they really had...
I think based on what a difficult conversation means, right?
We got a couple minutes. What is a difficult conversation?
A difficult what I was saying for me, the difficult conversation is when the mirror is on me, right? That has made a lot of, like, why your conversation was difficult, right?
Right.
You felt like the mirror was
it was all the way on me. It was one thing for me to put it on myself.
Or to even put it on Danny, right? And
so you want some accountability.
Of course. Who don't want accountability?
Nobody. Child, nobody. Don't nobody want no accountability.
Girl, accountability makes for a better life for us all.
It does.
I mean, that's why people go to coaching. And if you in therapy, I mean, maybe therapy is a place if you don't want accountability. I don't know.
I mean, it can be depending on the therapy. I mean, there are variables, right?
Yeah. But yeah, that's the one thing we want to do in life, right? Is the stuff that we say we want to do. I'm gonna call Cliff and tell him
that write down all the shit she ain't good at and let her know, like, the stuff that you got a problem with. Because I think the Cliff, same thing that we were saying, like, my wife ain't terrible.
Right.
Like, she's this, she's that. I know her heart, like, all of those things. And it can stop you from saying the hard things but it builds up over time because...
Right, but you know the hard things be showing. Like, you know when somebody be feeling some kind of way. So...
But if you know that they feeling some kind of way, why don't you?
But you don't know why.
No,
you cannot make excuses.
No, basically what you
I can't make up a story.
Basically, you just said that like
I can't make up a story.
No, basically,
I'm not in the season of making up stories.
No, you basically just said you know what irritates.
No, I don't.
You did just say that.
No, I said you know when someone.
Exactly.
Right, but
so you know,
you don't know why.
But if he don't say it, you gonna keep doing what you doing
until the day comes. Okay, let's wrap. That's not what I'm saying, but
that is what you just said.
You don't know what a person is getting. You don't know.
What?
You don't know what they're getting. Or like what could be driving. You can make up stories all day long.
No, what you just said is I'm gonna keep on, because I think that is important. Like, I'm gonna keep on taking advantage as long as they don't say nothing. Then we fine.
Girl, she is funny. Look at these. Look at the terminology.
That's
using.
If they don't say nothing, I ain't gonna say nothing.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
That's what you just said.
The hardest conversation has not happened yet.
Be listening to the podcast. Cliff, write you a list. Write a list down and tell her about her shit,
baby.
Tell her. Because she said she want to hear it, but do she really, really want to hear it? And that's the thing.
I'm open.
You open?
I'm open.
Now you gonna fight back?
Of course.
What you mean fight?
I mean,
do not listen to win or listen to fix. Like, are you going to really sit there and take in whatever write a list, Cliff. I'm telling you, write a list and get about 15 things.
Oh, Lord.
I'm just playing about the number. No, Cliff, write you a list and say like, babe, these are the things that I think that you can improve on.
Okay, like I said, I'm open.
What does
However,
open mean?
When you ask me, am I going to fight back? Of course. I mean,
What you mean
it's
fight?
not. It's
What
it's
you
not
mean fight?
normal.
What?
We're gonna find some validity. And what you write on this paper?
What? What?
We're gonna find some validity.
All jokes aside, though, like Cliff writes this list.
Okay.
He comes back. What makes you think that we're gonna wrap it up in a second?
Right.
But why do you feel that you would have to find some validity? You think you're a good wife?
Yes.
Right.
No doubt.
Right.
No doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm.
Do you think that whatever he were to write on that list would counteract how you currently see yourself, and that would be the thing that would make it difficult?
Right.
Okay.
So that's why I will fight. That's why I will fight.
But why you got to fight? Like if you had this awareness right here, why?
Because that's part of who I am. Like, not saying I'm not gonna change. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So when I say that, I'm not saying that I'm not open to change and I won't change. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I do have a personality type.
Now, girl, let me ask you another question. Let's just say Cliff will write this list. I really think you should write this list, Cliff. Let's say Cliff writes this list. Now,
I'll be overwhelmed.
Right? But does it have to be like, in order for me to change, you also have to change too?
What do you mean?
Like if he gives you your list and it's like, okay, like we here now. Like let's have this conversation. Like, would you changing be contingent upon him changing as well?
No.
Okay, no, that was a because that's the other part too. Like, are you willing to get in alignment with like your best self and really listen to your partner's need without knowing what's going to come from the other side of that? And right, I think that oftentimes we want to see the change like together. Like we both want to be growing and changing at the same time, but development doesn't necessarily work like that. Right, because sometimes you can make changes for a whole 2 years and then your partner don't catch up with you until some time, which is why people be like, oh, they got the better version of them. No, your ass just was not patient enough to wait for that better version of them because you feel like you're so far ahead. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, write the list, boo. Write it.
Be easy. No, just one.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for supporting us. If you listen to the podcast, subscribe. Like, click the subscribe button. We enjoy this each and every week. Okay. We do have a guest next week. I think it's gonna be a real good conversation. But we're out. Follow us at Success is Complicated, and Sierra has her own Instagram. It's CBizzle, CeeBizzle. All right, y'all, we're out.